Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. I spent most of my bid out in California. I started out in Lompoc in 2001 to 2004. From Lompoc, I got transferred to Victorville. I didn't last that long in Victorville. At the end of 2005, I got caught up and got sent to Beaumont in 2006. Then in 2008, they closed down USP Beaumont and pulled up a bus and shipped all of us out. And I ended up in Atwater, California from 2008 to 2015. I say that to mention that, I did most of my time out in California, so a lot of my dealings and interactions were with the Southsiders. And as you know, during my time out that way, I got real cool with some of their big homies. Topo, Black Bomb, Gato, Beto, Ruben. I was in Lompoc in F Block with Ruben. Then when we got to Victorville, when I came out of the shoe, Ruben was in 2A with me. And also, they had the big guy. I guess he was like one of the founders. They call him Black Dan. And Black Dan was the guy that put Black Bob on. So I say that to mention and emphasize the difference between those guys as shot caller as opposed to me being the spokesman for my homie. Me being the unofficial spokesman for my core group, I don't really have the authority like they do. I deal a lot with the politics, a lot of the issues that comes up between my guys, whether it's in-house or with another group. But when something needs to get done, when there's somebody needs to get voted off the island, for me, I pretty much go to everybody else and get their consensus on how and their 2 cents about how they feel about whatever situation comes up. Being in the Asian Islander car, we don't have no big homies. There's nobody that runs the car as like a dictatorship, because we're all from different areas around the country, and we're all different races. You got Cambodian, Laos, Vietnamese, Chinese, Korean, Filipino, Hawaiian, Samoans, Tongans, and a few others here and there, whether they're from India or Fiji or Guam. Like, we're just a collective group that got lumped into a car because everybody else is based on race and gangs. The whites, you have the white car, which is all the whites, but then it breaks down with amongst the whites, all the different skinhead gangs, all the different white supremacy gangs. And then after that, for the independents, the one that are not gang members, they break down into their own states and region. Same thing with the blacks. There's a coalition of the blacks, but the blacks get broke down into gangs and then into region, so on and so forth. But with the Mexicans, there's really only 2 groups of Mexicans that run the yard. You're either on the California yard, you're either running Sereno or you're running Paisa. Even if you're from other gangs or whatever, you're running under one of those umbrellas. But before I left Victorville, they started letting Tango Blast over there and New Mexico. They are in itself their own entity, but when shit pop off, they fall under the umbrella of the Serenos because that's whose yard it is. And when these guys hit the yard, whoever hits the yard first from these other gangs, the politics are laid out before them. Because if they don't abide by the politics that the Serenios put out, then they're not going to be able to walk that yard. For a lot of the homies that come out of Utah, like I mentioned, Utah are homegrown gangs, right? You know, outside of you being a Southsider or Norteño, if you're in any other of these Mexican gangs, these are homegrown that started out here. But when they hit the feds, they don't have the numbers. They're not around there with their homeboys. You might get shipped all over the United States, and you can land anywhere. And if you land on a yard where there's Norteños, or if you land on a yard where there's Sureños, these guys usually fall under one of them umbrellas. So, but going back to the shot call, I have a story to share with you on how they work as opposed to, it's just somebody like me, right? But when you hit a yard and you fall under the Sureño umbrella, the black hand, they tax you. You got to pay rent. If you're a Southsider or a Sureño and you're under the black hand, you're paying rent. I mean, it's nothing outrageous or anything. It might be a book of stamps a week. A book of stamps is equivalent to $5, right? And you might think, oh, maybe that's not that much. But if you got 200 people paying $5 a week, $20 a month, 20 times 200, I think is like $2,000 a month. So if you're making $2,000 a month off of just your members contributing to you, you're living good, especially in the penitentiary, because at the end of the day, you're going to spend $360 a month out of in commissary. But not just that, like whatever they say is law amongst their people, you know. Whatever they want, if you got something and the big homie wants it, you can't tell him no. And that's just the way it is. For me, I can't just go to one of my homies and be like, oh yeah, let me get that or let me get a piece of that. They'll look at me like I'm crazy, right? But so the story I have to share with you, we was in Victorville, and it has to do with the big homie Gato. Rest in peace, Gato. I had mentioned back in 2017, 2018, around that time, that Gato had got killed by MS-13 that they were he was selling up with. So to that, rest in peace to him. Being out in California, I was able to build a relationship and a rapport with these individuals. And, my dealings with them are way different than the way they deal with their homies because I'm not part of their gang. I'm not under them. I'm my own man. And when we interact on the same level of playing field. So being in Victorville, like I said, I have access to everything in Victorville. Don't matter if the whites touch down or the blacks or the Mexicans, anything that comes through that door that gets on that yard, I have access to it because I interact with everybody. I move around in every circle. I got homies from all walks of life, from all gangs, and I built a reputation that I'm reliable and trustworthy. So whenever anybody has something, they always be like, hey, Mason, what's up, man? This is what I got. You know who's looking? Or dudes will come to me and be like, hey, I'm looking for this and that. You know who got it? And I go and introduce them. Or if the guy I'm dealing with doesn't want to be introduced to anybody, then I'll play the middleman. I don't really like playing the middleman, but sometimes I do. So on this particular day, I got about 3 papers, and the papers is of tar, and the papers go 5 books a piece. So I got 15 books worth of papers in my pocket, right? Like I know who gets high, I know who parties, I know all of them. At this time in Victorville is around maybe the end of 2004 or beginning or the summer of 2005. And Victorville is hot. If anybody's been in Victorville, it's 3 hours from Vegas and it's a freaking desert, right? You come out 8 o'clock in the morning in the summertime, it's already cooking. So for me, when I was in Victorville, I'd come out in the morning when they call the first rec move and go back in to come out to play handball or basketball. Then I go back in at 10 o'clock. And after that, I'm in the block. I run a poker table in the unit. So I keep myself busy, you know. But every time they call a move, they have a 10-minute move on the hour every hour. So anytime they call a move, I step out of the unit to pick up, drop off, or wheel and deal with whatever. So at this particular time, I come out the unit. They call the move. It's after lunch, so maybe it's probably like the 1:30 move or 2:30 move. So I come out and I got these three papers in my pocket, and I'm scanning. I'm not trying to walk around on the yard because it's only a 10-minute move. So I just post up in front of my unit, and I'm scanning to see who I can dump these three papers off to, right? So I see the homie Trigger. I think his last name is Figueroa. He's out from California. He's a Sereno. He's out of California, but he caught his case out here in Utah. So me and him ended up fighting our case around the same time, and up in Lompoc together, and then Victorville. So I spot him. I see him walking, across the unit, and I call him over. I say, "Hey, Trig." I say, "What's up?" I say, "Come here, man. What's up?" I say, "Hey, I got some papers. What you trying to do?" He goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Let me check them out." I said, "Yeah, I'll let you check them out." I said, "You trying to do something?" He's like, "Yeah." So when I go dip in my pocket to pull the papers out for him to check it out, he tells me, "No, hey, put it back, put it back, put it back." I was like, "What's up?" So I look up. He tilts his head because I'm in 2A and 2B is right across from us. He tilts his head towards 2B, and walking towards us is Gato, old man Gato. So we're posted up in front of my door in 2A. So Trigger's like, "Hey man, just put it up. Hey, don't tell him you got anything." I don't answer him, right? He just tells me like, "Man, I'm gonna get those papers from you. Just don't sell it to nobody. I got you. I got you." So I'm like, "All right." I didn't respond. I didn't say yes or no. I'm just like, standing there, and he's trying to play it off like we're just in a conversation. Like, "Man, yeah, yeah, just act like we're just chopping it up about something." So, old man Gato, he's got swag with him. You know, how can he not? He's a known name from every account that I've heard from him. He's a thorough dude, certified gangster, right? So he comes strolling towards us. His little stroll. He comes over there. Say, "Hey, what's up, Mesa?" I say, "Hey, how you doing, Gato?" We shake hands, whatever. Say, "What you doing?" Like, "Oh man, we just kicking it. I just came out to get some air, right?" He's like, "Well, what you got in your pocket?" Right? So when he asked me, I could see Trigger like diverting his eye, hoping I don't say that thing. So he asked me like, "Hey, what you got in your pocket?" I was like, "Shit, I got just a few papers that I'm trying to dump off." So Gato was like, "Well, let me check them out." So I pull them out, hand one to him. He looks at it. So yeah, he said, "What are these going for?" I said, "Oh, they're 5 books." I said, "Well, how many you got?" I was like, "Man, I only got 3 of them." So all right, let me get them. So I dip in my pocket, pulled out the other two and handed to him. He looks at him, said, "All right, thank you." Like for me, I'm not worried about getting paid from him. I've been dealing with him since I touched down in Lompoc. When I got to Lompoc, they put me in M block. And M block was a 2-hour watch unit. That's for all the high security dudes. They put me in there because of the assault I had on staff. So every 2 hours, I have to check in with a CO. Doesn't matter if I'm on the compound, doesn't matter if I'm on the yard or in indoor rec or at the chapel or library, wherever I'm at, every 2 hours, I got to go up to one of the COs and have them call me into the tower. Hey, my name is Mesa. I had him my 2-hour card. They call in and say, hey, yeah, we got Mesa in the law library. So they got to keep track of me every 2 hours. So being in M block, that's where I got to know Topo, Black Bob, Beto, Gato, and a few others that was there that weren't MAs, but they were certified gangsters in that block. So we have a rapport, and I've been doing business dealings with them. There's plenty of times where Black Bob and Gato looked out for me on certain stuff. They come and be like, hey, man, you want this? It's like, yeah. And they give me a price, which is like half price compared to whatever else they were given to their own homies. So I give the papers to Gato. He looks at them. He puts them in his pocket. And he stops and he looks at Trigger. He say, hey, make sure he gets those books. And walks off. Right? So when he gets farther enough away from an earshot, Trigger turns to me like, man, what the fuck, man? I told you not to give it to him. I told you not to let him know you had some. Like, man, I'm not gonna lie to that dude, man. That's the big homie. I'm not gonna lie to him. Like, man, that's fucked up, man. I was trying to get those. I said, well, hey, I'm gonna be out on the next move. Make sure you have my 15 books. Like, man, that's fucked up, man. Why you do that? He's but I'm not gonna lie to nobody, you know what I mean? And especially somebody like I'm just, at the time I'm a kid myself. I'm in my early 20s, mid 20s. This is the big homie. I don't, but and I have a rapport with them, and they've always treated me with respect and looked out for me and all the rest of it. So when the big homie came and he asked me, it's only natural that I let him know what I got. You know, I mean, Trigger didn't like it that much, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do, right? You know, but I don't feel nothing about it, like as far as like, oh, I shouldn't have said nothing to him or anything, because there's plenty of times where I went to him, Gato, and asked for things, and he just, here you go, right? So when Gato left, he told Trigger to make sure I get my books. So I know Trigger's pouting, he's upset because he wanted to get high or whatever. But then with the homie Trigger, there's been a few occasions that he's come late or he's come short, but we have a rapport or whatever. It's never been any big deal. But this is on Gato's face. Gato had told him to pay me. So outside of what he was crying about, I let him know, hey, because they're about to close the move. I said, hey man, I'll be back out on the next move. Make sure you have my 15 books. Say, man, that's fucked up. Mason, man, you fucked up, man. You wrong for that. I was like, that, homie. Just make sure you have my books, right? So when they closed the move, I went in. When I come back out at the 2:30 move or whatever, Trigger was there with my 15 books. And I tell you the story because that's how it is with those guys. When the big homie comes through, and they want something or they tell you to do something, these guys really don't have a choice in whatever it is that is being asked of them or being told to them. So, out here in the streets, you can be whatever you want to be. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you want to do. But when you go into the feds, and I'm sure it's probably the same thing in the state. I've never been to the California state or any state prison. I've only done my time in the feds. When you're under that umbrella, when you become a Southsider, and you're under the umbrella of the Black Hand, their word is law. I think I mentioned something back when I was in Lompoc. In the one of the beginnings of my video, that is they dude named Lonely, the homie Bandit. He's a white dude out of California. Just had helped him put up his sound system in his cell, and they were sitting in the cell and they were bumping the sound system, and they had called yard move, and this dude named Perico walked by. Perico is a black hat. He walked by, stopped in front of the cell, and was listening to the sound system. Like, oh, that's a nice system right there. That sounds really good. He goes, hey. Then he tells Lonely, hey, I'm going to go out to the yard. By the time I come back, make sure that stuff's hooked up in my cell. And then he burned off. For Lonely, he's like, he ain't got no choice. He just spent all this money to buy the amp, getting the amp made, finding the speakers, and then paying Band-Aid and them to hook it up. But now, because his big homie came through and wanted it, he had to give it up. Like, there's plenty of those type of stories that I've witnessed, that I've been there, and I share the story is just to let you guys know and understand that when you sign up to these different entities, you're the newbie, you're the young homie, and the way some of these organizations, the way their politics is, that the way they have it in place is that you're the frontline soldier. You move when they tell you to move. You jump when they tell you to jump. You're not allowed to think for yourself. You do what you're told. And if you ain't ready to do what you're told, to jump when you're told to jump, then you should think twice about signing up with these organizations. Because, yeah, there's thousands and thousands of them, but there's only a small group, a few of them, that runs it. And, from their perspective is that they went through the same shit, earning their place in a hierarchy. So when they get to where they want to be, they do the same shit to the rest of them. Not everybody that becomes a member is going to get made. And, it's an uphill battle, man. So if you ain't ready to have your life be dictated by somebody else, then you should think twice about signing up. Welcome to the USP.